Growing up in the world today, it's hard not to be critical of one's physical appearance, especially its use of weight. There's always new diet food fads, there's new get quick skinny schemes, there's enhancements to perfect yourself because what we view as normal is no longer normal. It was once quoted by Arabella Ware, a famous British author. She mentioned, "Society prizes the girl for being thin more than anything else she may bring to the table. Take a look at all the actresses. When is the last time you heard someone being commended for their acting skills in a movie or how thin they looked in that film?" Because of these new diet fads and the want and need to be thin, a lot of individuals have turned to starvation. Starvation is basically depriving your body of any essential nutrients that it needs to thrive. It isn't the healthiest way, but it does give you the results. There are 3 distinct side effects to starvation. There is your physical transformation, which is what people seek because they tend to want to be thin. There's a testable chemical imbalance. You're not receiving the same nutrients that you need or had before, so your body is irregular. And there's psychological degradation. Because of the lack of nutrients, your body can't sustain what it normally produces for your body to function appropriately. Physical traits that happen with starvation would be an emaciation of the face and body, and your body regulation tends to decline. Now, before 1944, there wasn't any statistical data that was given to show the effects of starvation, but in 1944, the University of Minnesota created the Minnesota Starvation Experiment. They took 36 subjects and over a course of a year, took their measurements and decreased their caloric intake. What they saw was astounding. They saw loss of subcutaneous tissue and muscle degradation. Because of the loss of caloric intake, body results to consuming itself. Since you're no longer giving it the nutrients that it's providing, it's going to resort to using your reserves, your subcutaneous tissue, your fat, and your muscles. This creates a skeletal, frail image, and it gives you an extreme loss of energy. It was noted with the scientists that there was always complaining from the test subjects of it being painful and increasingly uncomfortable to sit down for long periods of times. This was because their subcutaneous tissue was degrading. They no longer had it anymore because their body was using it as a resource to survive. Now, because it's using its last reservoir of sources in order to provide itself energy, there is no longer any kind of normal function or normal body regulation. The body tends to churn off when it's not being provided the substantial nutrients that it needs. They can't regulate their body, so there's complaints of being cold. They have cold hands, cold fingers, their circulation is very poor. Their body shuts down, they have great fainting spells. The balances are thrown out of whack because the calories that you're intaking are no longer what they once were. There's also a decrease in pulse rate, and there's a decrease in the speed of your autonomic nervous system. This autonomic nervous system is considered your control system. It helps to regulate your heart rate, your digestion, your respiratory rate, your salivation, your perspiration, urination, and sexual arousal. Now, you're affecting this one control system by the decrease of the caloric intake you're taking in. All this for the want to be thin. Now, because you're not being provided the same nutrients, your brain isn't functioning appropriately. So there's a large decrease in serotonin. Now, serotonin is a neurotransmitter that is provided in the brain. This neurotransmitter helps to regulate your mood, your emotions, and your sleep. So imagine throwing off your serotonin levels. Your mood's going to be irregular, your sleep is going to be abnormal, and your emotions are going to be everywhere. There was actually a study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition that stated that serotonin is directly affected by caloric consumption. You decrease your calories, you decrease your serotonin, you create irregular patterns. Now, this isn't the only psychological change that happens. Because of this decrease in serotonin, you do have a loss of full brain function, so your learning is askew. You're not able to concentrate as long as you used to, and you can't remember certain items that would have normally been easy for the normal person to remember. You can't have the energy to perform your normal day-to-day activities. You lose your ambition, and you lack interest in any hobbies or interests that you had prior to the starvation mode. Emotional instability. This means mood swings all the way from elation and a giddiness to a euphoric state to a deep dark hole of depression. It's this depression that tends to get a lot of individuals in a deeper trouble because they're depressed about their weight, so they continue to keep starving even though their body is giving them great signs that they are missing that consumption of calories. There are great angry outbursts, and like I said, with the decrease in serotonin, your moods are going to be across the board. It's really hard to understand why individuals subject themselves to all these side effects caused by starvation, and this is merely for a vanity effect of being thin and staying thin. They suffer through psychological effects, physical transformation, emaciation of the face and body, and an continued endless instability of moods and emotions. The body regulation is thrown askew because the calorie intake is so greatly reduced, and your pulse rate suffers as well. The low calorie intake affects serotonin development. Again, it's going to create the mood swings and the instability emotionally. It's a great strain on the biology of your human body when your caloric intake has decreased so drastically, and all of this in the vanity of being thin. I hope that I've helped to teach you a little more of the effects of what starvation actually does to the body. It doesn't only make you thin, it also makes you unstable.